Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today I have Joe Kaufman. Joe Kaufman is an expert in the fields of national security, counterterrorism, and foreign affairs. He has been featured on several major news networks, including Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, and C-SPAN. Kaufman has served as a consultant to different government agencies and has been instrumental in getting U.S.-based different government agencies and consultant to different government agencies has been instrumental in getting U.S.-based charities that were tied to terrorism shut down. Joe Kaufman has also worked with federal agencies towards getting terror-related individuals put behind bars. Exactly 1 month prior to 9/11's attacks, Kaufman predicted the attacks by stating that the 1993 World Trade Center bombing was not an aberration and that it would happen again. Well, hello, Mr. Kaufman. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Your recent article in Front Pages magazine tackled and pointed out that ICNA, the Islamic Circle of North America, is pushing to have an imam, which I'm kind of surprised about that label there, Jamil Abdullah al-Amin, released from jail. I know ICNA is not exactly an organization on the up and up. So can you tell us who Jamal Abdullah al-Amin is first?
Sure. So his original name, or at least actually I don't know his original name, but he goes by the name, or he used to go by the name H. Rap Brown, and then he converted to Islam and he changed his name to Jamil al-Amin. He is best known because he had been involved in a murder where he was allegedly the murderer. Allegedly he had impersonated an officer and did some other things, and the police wanted to serve him they had a warrant for his arrest. They went into his neighborhood. A car drove up to the police car, and I guess they had recognized him in the car. They had told him, and this is from testimony from the police officer who had lived, maybe the other one as well, because the other one, I don't believe he had died on the scene, but I believe he passed afterwards from his injuries. And from the police testimony, they had told him to put up his hands, and evidently he started firing, or he got out of the car and started firing, shot both of them, and one of the officers that he had shot repeatedly had died from his wounds. So now, years after the fact, there are people that are saying, and they've been saying in the recent past as well, that this imam, this so-called imam, is innocent, and that it wasn't him that had done this shooting. And so there was another individual who had come forward, said that he was actually the murderer. But it turns out he was an ally of him, and later he recanted his story. And he was wanted for other crimes as well, and it looks like he was going to be going to jail anyway, so he wanted to help out his friend or acquaintance in the imam. And anyway, so he's in jail, and I guess now, given the fact that you have Black Lives Matter and this whole movement that's against police officers to defund the police, yada yada yada, it kind of makes sense that these organizations would want to pounce on that issue now. And so a quote mainstream Muslim organization like ICNA, they have individuals involved in their organization that would like this imam out of prison, and so they're rehashing these stories, calling for them to have a retrial and to free this cop killer. So it makes sense they would want to do that now because of the whole defund the police and the Black Lives Matter and everything. But that's essentially.
I'm just amazed when I think about this. I mean, I'm going to see if I can push our interview out to law enforcement today, because I think what you're doing, I think this article is incredibly important. I mean, you know that ICNA isn't exactly, they don't have that pretty history. What can you tell us about them and their motives?
So essentially, the organization, it was founded in the late 60s as an American arm to Jamaat-e-Islami overseas. Jamaat-e-Islami is the largest Islamist organization in South Asia. They have a huge organization in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and in India. Also, major ties to the government of Pakistan. So they have a lot of power in Pakistan, if not elsewhere. The organization has a militant group, much like in Gaza, where you have al-Jamiya al-Islamiyya, the Muslim Brotherhood apparatus. Yes. that under it is Hamas. Much like that in Pakistan, you've got Jamaat-e-Islami, and under that you've got Hizbul Mujahideen, their militant group, which operates out of Pakistan and Kashmir. Committed a lot of terrorist attacks in Kashmir. In fact, the head of the organization is also the head of something called the United Jihad Council, which consists of them and other terrorist organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba and smaller groups. And ICNA, it's not just, and we were talking about this before, it's not just their past where they were created as this entity inside the United States to be affiliated with Jamaat-e-Islami overseas. Ever since then, they've been actively involved with Jamaat-e-Islami, as well as Lashkar-e-Taiba itself, the group that's on the U.S. terrorism list, and they're basically a cousin organization to Hizbul Mujahideen. And that was the organization. Not only are they involved in a lot of terrorist attacks in Kashmir, but it's the organization that owned the property, the compound where Osama bin Laden was killed in. So,
wow.
So Jamaat-e-Islami has a lot of blood on its hands in Kashmir, and with Al-Qaeda and other things, and the like. So it's a big deal when you have a group in the United States that's openly involved with these organizations, and as I said to you before, they get away with it. ICNA does, because there was a time, and I showed proof of this. I think I showed it in the article, that they had been a top donor. They were probably are, but they were a top donor to something called the Al-Khidmat Foundation.
That's in there.
It's the main charity of Jamaat-e-Islami, and operates out of Pakistan. And they were the top donor to this organization at the same time that Jamaat-e-Islami and the Al-Khidmat Foundation took a delegation from Pakistan to Damascus, Syria, to give, was it like $100,000? I think it was $100,000 or 6 million rupees. Rupees is their currency over there. So essentially $99,600,000 to the head of Hamas, Khalid Mashal, or then head of Hamas, when he was living in Damascus, Syria. So they took that to his home, and the way that ICNA gets away with giving that money, that may have led to giving money to Hamas, was that they're giving it to a group called Al-Khidmat Foundation, which is not on the U.S. terrorism list. And that's essentially it. No one regulates, certainly the Pakistani government doesn't regulate where Al-Khidmat Foundation gives its money. I don't know if the Pakistani government, calls anything, terrorist. Maybe they call India,
Well, we have to remember their definition of terrorism is the taking of innocent life, and innocent means Muslim to them. So, yeah, you're a terrorist if you're taking Muslim lives, but you can't be if you're a Muslim taking anybody else's life.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe they have something. United Arab Emirates has a list of terrorist organizations where CARE falls on it.
Yes.
Falls on it. So I don't know that the Pakistani government doesn't have something like that, but I don't believe they do. And if they do, it probably consists of Indian organizations. They call maybe Prime Minister Modi, terrorist. But,
that's probably true.
But there's nothing in Pakistan, as far as I know, calling Hamas or Al-Khidmat Foundation a terrorist. And they would never call Al-Khidmat Foundation a terrorist anyway, because, as I said, Jamaat-e-Islami is involved with the Pakistani government. So they hold power within the Pakistani government. And so the Al-Khidmat Foundation is a big deal in Pakistan. And when the Al-Khidmat Foundation gives money to Hamas, I guess it's no big deal for the Pakistani government, but it's certainly a big deal for others, like the United States government or the Israeli government.
Definitely.
Or others.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what it is. You're giving to a third party, and that third party is giving to a terrorist organization. And ICNA still is involved with the Al-Khidmat Foundation to this day. Year after year, they hold events with this organization. Recently, also, as I mentioned, they held an event with one of the with Lashkar-e-Taiba, or one of its subsidiaries. So that's a big deal as well, because Lashkar-e-Taiba is actually on the U.S. terrorism list. So that maybe is even bigger than giving money and them, to a third party. Here, they were holding an actual event with Lashkar-e-Taiba.
You would think that the bells and buzzers would go off at DHS, FBI, whatever, to start putting the screws to this organization.
And not only do they not put the screws to the organization, but the U.S. government is giving this organization to the tune of millions of dollars to do relief work inside the United States and overseas.
That's right.
So
That's
when I say that ICNA was the main donor to the Al-Khidmat Foundation when they were bringing this money to Hamas, it was ICNA, but it was in the form of ICNA Relief and Helping Hand. Helping Hands and ICNA Relief is the domestic relief organization for ICNA, and Helping Hands is their overseas relief organization. So the United States government gives money from FEMA, which is run by Homeland Security. So it's Homeland Security doling out this money to an organization that's connected to terrorism overseas. And I say, if you're not going to shut down this organization, the organization should be shut down. Nothing like that should be going on in the United States.
Amen. Yeah.
Stop giving it money from the U.S. government, because you're only growing this organization. I mean, the organization has grown tremendously. Now they have their footprint all over the place. They've created all these different subsidiaries, and they look good. I mean, these things look really good. They're putting a lot of money behind these things. And what I'm afraid of is that a good percentage of this money, if not the whole thing, I don't know who's donating to this group. Maybe some mosques out there, but a good percentage of that money, what I'm afraid of is U.S. taxpayer dollars. Wow.
I do know that they do operate here in Rochester, New York. I'm aware of that because they've come here and given an imam, who's the guy who actually got me involved in a lot of this, because I was noticing what he was into. But That's Dr. Muhammad Shafiq out of Nazareth College. He's now professor emeritus, but yes, they gave him some big award when they had their organization meeting here. So they are in New York State and active here. You said they're active, I want to say thank you for telling everybody they're still active today. That to me is extremely important to get that point across. What happened at the August 2nd sponsored event by ICNA to get Al-Amin, that they wanted to do to get Al-Amin event? Who was there? Was his family involved?
Yeah, they had Al-Amin's son over there, was named Kyrie, and other individuals. I know I had mentioned the other individuals. One was Khalid Griggs. Sorry, he's been a long time Al-Amin advocate. But if you go on Griggs' social media, you'll see a lot of other stuff too. You know, there's a lot of anti-Israel stuff. There's his talk of much like Al-Amin, you have a guy named Kwame Ture, whose original name was Stokely Carmichael. He was very involved with within the 60s. Black Power movement, just like Al-Amin, and he's the guy that said he's notorious for the quote, "The only good Zionist is a dead Zionist." So this guy Colin Griggs, who was featured in this forum put on from ICNA, Colin Griggs had talked about how he was honored to go to an anti-Zionism conference where he had met this guy Kwame Ture. So he talked about his honor. He also he also believes that the U.S. is, and quote, I'm reading this, is a quote, Israeli colony owned and controlled by pro-Zionist Israeli fanatics, end quote. He posted on his Facebook page a photo of the track star Jesse Owens at the 1936 Olympics, and of course Jesse Owens was there. He was one of the big stars of the Olympics. But this photo, which was doctored, has him arm in arm with Adolf Hitler, where Jesse Owens is smiling, and of course this photo, it's if you read what's on this posting, it's denouncing the U.S. president, and it's trying to make Hitler into a good guy, like he maybe he's misunderstood, because here he is smiling arm in arm with Jesse Owens,
as if that ever happened, right?
As if that ever happened. In fact, the reality was that Hitler was offended that Jesse Owens was involved in the Olympics to begin with. It's there's a lot of reports about Hitler hating the fact that Jesse Owens was there, and that Jesse Owens was beating everybody at this thing. So it just to stick those things on your social media, it kind of tells you who this guy Griggs was. Also on there was this guy Omar Suleiman. He was in the news somewhat recently because he had given he had done a prayer at a congressional event. I believe at the U.S. Congress itself, and some people criticized the Democratic Party for inviting this guy, and rightly so, because this guy is a big anti-Semite, huge, against Israel. He says, quote, "God willing, we will live to see the liberation of Palestine in our time," end quote. He says that, quote, "the Zionists are the enemies of God." That's this guy. He prayed on Twitter for a third intifada from the Palestinians to the Israelis. So this is the panel that they had: the son of this alleged cop killer, who himself posted on his social media. I mentioned it. He posted a video of this group with a very vulgar name, Not Effing Around Coalition, NFAC, where they were marching in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It was a Black Power organization. It is a Black Power organization, and they're all carrying rifles while marching, and the leader of the organization is telling everybody over the microphone, and there were hundreds of individuals there holding rifles, he said, quote, "You said you will start shooting black people at 8 o'clock. We're going to start shooting white people at 8:05. So it appears, and other things as well, that this Kyrie, the son of this Al-Amin, it appears that he believes, in the same type of violent support for violence that his father did way back when, and still does. So this is the panel that ICNA put together to talk up, freedom for the cop killer.
And this is just sick and sad. We have a guy we have a group advocating for the release of cop killers during the time when we have a couple of groups out there wreaking havoc on the cops. We have Democrats begging to defund the cops, and all of this happening at the same time. And we have idiot judges releasing terrorists. They just released the one that tried to kill Pamela Geller. This is just, I believe we're going to look back at this time period someday, and we're going to call it the period of idiocy, insanity. I mean, it's just insane. I can't see how all this is happening at the same time, but yeah.
Well, I'm only praying that they don't win office. When I looked at the convention, and I just wrote an article about that. Hopefully that's out tonight. But how at their convention they have people like Linda Sarsour, but additional with Linda Sarsour, they have representatives from CARE and Hamas related group, of course, Islamic Relief, that's been banned in a number of nations for its support for Hamas and for its giving millions of dollars to al-Qaeda related organizations. So to have these organizations represent the Democratic Party, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure, if Joe Biden gets into power, these groups are going to have a say in what happens with the United States moving forward, ICNA included. And I don't want to see that happen for anything.
It's not good. It's not good for America. I want to say thank you, Joe, for joining us. I want to continue to urge you to work hard at what you're doing, because it's drastically important. And do keep up on what's happening politically. I've watched pieces of the DNC. I'm watching pieces of the RNC. And I have to say, I've been shocked by, Joe Biden called for jihad and didn't even know that he did that. We have Joe Biden endorsing anti-Semites, unaware that he's doing that. That says a lot about where he is functionally. But I've never heard a man more racist than he is that's running for president.
He did condemn Linda Sarsour,
and he turned around and apologized to her, though.
Right, the next day he apologizes.
Yeah, he apologized to her for condemning her.
Right.
That just blows my mind. Yeah, that made the news that he condemned her, but he in person turned around and apologized to her. So it just tells you what kind of a man he really is.
Sure.
Again, thank you, Joe. God bless you, and tell your family thank you for giving me this time. Thank you
Thanks.
soon.
Take care.
God bless.